A common question a lot of people have is it okay to have local state in our UI components, or do we have to put all our state in the Redux store? So let's look at two ways to organize state in Redux applications. One approach is to put only global data in the Redux store. So if the same data is used by multiple components, we put it in the store so we have a single copy of this data. For example, in an e-commerce app, we could put the current user and the shopping cart in the store and keep everything else outside of the store. That's one way to use Redux, and that's totally fine. But I'm not a fan of this approach because it doesn't allow us to get all the benefits of Redux. We're essentially using Redux in a small part of our application. So we don't get all these amazing debugging tools, we don't get time travel debugging, we don't get caching and persistence, we don't get testable code, and so on. In React, we can also use context objects to share global data. So if all we use Redux for is sharing global data, it's better to drop Redux and just use context objects in React. We can get the job done with very little code. Another approach to organize state is to put everything in the store. With this approach, we have a single, unified way to access data, so our code will be more consistent and more maintainable. Also, we can use the store as a cache, so if the data we want is already in the store, we can just use it. We don't have to refetch it from the server. Also, debugging becomes easier. We can use Redux DevTools to see exactly how our application state changes. Also, our code becomes easier to test. So the more state we push into the store, the more we can get out of Redux. Now, of course, this comes with a cost. We have to write more Redux code. I personally favor this approach because of all the benefits we get. As I told you at the beginning of the course, we shouldn't use Redux in small applications with a simple data flow. So if you're using Redux in a complex application, why shouldn't we take full advantage of it? So I personally prefer to put all state in the store. Having said that, there are exceptions like form state. Most of the time, we don't want to keep form state in the store for a number of reasons. First of all, in most applications, temporary values in a form have no impact on other parts of the application until the user submits the form. So there is little or no value in keeping them in the store. Also, we shouldn't dispatch an action on every keystroke because this is going to incur a performance penalty, and it's also going to make debugging harder. We don't want to open Redux DevTools and see 50 actions that were dispatched as the user was typing their full name. So in most applications, we should store form state locally in our components. It's perfectly fine to populate a form with the data in the store, but we don't want to update the store while the user is changing the data. We want to update the store only when the user submits the form, okay? So here's the bottom line. The more state we put in the store, the more we can get out of Redux. But this doesn't mean we should put absolutely everything in the store. Local state is fine, and we should use it when it makes sense. If you're dealing with data that other parts of the application don't care about, like if you're building a form, it's better to store this data locally in a component rather than in the store.